Hello, guys. Welcome to Rex Arthur TV. This is the Rex Arthur Show where we discuss LGBTQ issues with an LGBTQ approach and an LGBTQ perspective in an LGBTQ plus planet where each and every one of us belongs to one of or um, one of or two letters in the 10-letter sexual alphabet. And today we are going to be on our philosophical side, uh, rivers of thought, lava of fikir, and I was very happy to see this video with Mark Zuckerberg and Yuval Harari. Very important dialectic. In fact, why I'm doing this video in the philosophical mold is for that reason. It is because of dialectics. Now, let's go to see what a dialectic is. A dialectic is, of course, this is part 2 of the video because we've already done part 1. And but I just want to remind you again what a dialectic is. A dialectic is a philosophical dialogue whereby people have is a discourse between two or more people holding different points of view about a subject but wishing to establish the truth through reasoned arguments. So this is what Mark and Yuval Harari are doing, and as I said in part 1, we are going through, what do you call it, we are recycling history, because in history, when the world became very advanced, when the world was advancing in civilization, it was advancing in thought. Every religion, every philosophy was born out of a civilized society. So whenever societies were civilized, they would create ideologies to understand and to explain the advancements in the society. So that's what we discussed in part 1. And now we're going on with that. I was just trying to do a small, what do you call it? A small, a rejoinder or a repeat of what we're doing. And so then we can also see the various types of dialectics that have happened before. Of course, the video is not about dialectics. I'm just trying to show you how many people have been doing dialectics before, and there are different types of dialectics. There's a classical philosophical one, and the Socratic method, and then you have also the medieval philosophy, and they ask questions. So they are very ordered. And then you have the modern philosophy. There's a Hegel dialectic, very important dialectic to understand. The Hegelian dialectic was you cause a problem, you have the answer, and then you create a solution. So this is the Hegelian dialectic, and you can see all of this is the Hegelian dialectic has been ruling philosophy for years until Karl Marx came with his historical materialism. And I like Karl Marx's philosophy. For one thing, it was very time-based. And I'll explain that when we talk about dialectics. So these are the very many dialectics, and we will go and study all of them. We're going to do a video to discuss this when we are combining Rex Arthur meets QSTPS blogger and vlogger Arthur Owiti, and we will put them in both channels because this is about philosophy and it's a very important thing. And this dialectical theology is an approach to theology in Protestantism that was developed in the aftermath of the First World War, and it is a reaction against the doctrines of the 19th century liberal theology and more positive evaluation of the teachings of Reformation. So you see, we're going to do a lot of discussion about that. And philosophically, we are now in the Marxist dialectic versus the Hegelian dialectic. And if I don't want to be so crass, but I could say this, that the socialists and the communists of the world rest with Marxist dialectic, whereas the capitalists of the world, they rest with Hegel. And Hegel, okay, I love that. The Hegelian Dialectic, the Book of Revelation, is the fifth and studio album. That's very nice, very, very, very nice album by this rock group. I didn't know it was an album. Uh, it's great. I'm gonna read about this later on, but I wanted us to talk about Hegel for a few minutes, and then we go on with the video. Very good discussion about AI, about globalism, and all of these things. There he is, Frederick Wilhelm Hegel. He was a philosopher like me, and he discussed, this is his philosophy: absolute idealism, Hegelianism, and all of that. And his principal achievement was in idealism. So his account of the master slave dialectic, bingo, that's what we wanted to discuss, and you have seen that. So master slave, that's capitalism. It's simple as that. And that's what dialecticism is. But the Marxist dialectic was different, because Marx looked at life historically and came up with even the theory of cycles, that we are just living the same life. And Solomon, who was also a philosopher, said there's nothing new under the sun. Everything that is happening is the same. And guess what? Even that verse, there's nothing new under the sun, is an error, because we are not under the sun. Are you seeing how flat earth science affected writing? It was because people lived, they thought the world was flat. So he said there's nothing new under the sun. Scientifically, it's an error. It is actually, we revolve around the sun. The sun is not above us. We are all suspended, including the sun. So that is what you need to understand about religion. It was written and made minus scientific knowledge. And that's why we are progressive. We reform religion with science. Yes. That's why you're having lesbian pastors. That's why you're having gay pastors. Is because science has shown us there are people who are gay and lesbian. Scientifically proven. Yes. 10,000, 5,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, they were gay people. But you could not scientifically prove they were gay unless you saw them having sex. So now, we don't even need sex to prove gay sex. We just need science. And it's there. Yes, because sex is a proof. I always tell people, if you want to know gays exist, watch porn. The guy erects. What else do you want? The person is gay. He erected. Anyway, I can talk about that. Okay, let's go on.
That the precedents on some of this stuff get really tricky. I mean, you're I think doing a good job of playing devil's advocate in the conversation because you're bringing all of the counter arguments that I think someone with good intent might bring to argue, hey, maybe a different set of data policies is something that we should consider. The thing that I just worry about is that what we've seen is that once a country puts that in place, that's a precedent that then a lot of other countries that might be more authoritarian use to basically be a precedent to argue that they should do the same things, and then that spreads, and I think that that's bad. Right, and that's one of the things that that is the the person running this company, I'm quite committed to making sure that we play our part in pushing back on that and keeping the internet as one platform. So, I mean, one of the most important decisions that I think I get to make is the person running this company is where are we going to build our data centers and store data? And we've made the decision that we're not going to put data centers in countries that we think have weak rule of law, where people's data may be improperly accessed, and that could put people in harm's way. And I mean, there have been a lot of questions around the world around questions of censorship, and I think that those are really serious and important. I mean, a lot of the reason why I build what we build is because I care about giving everyone a voice, giving people as much voice as possible. So I don't want people to be censored. At some level, these questions around data and how it's used and whether authoritarian governments get access to it, I think are even more sensitive because if you can't say something that you want, that is highly problematic. That violates your human rights. I think in a lot of cases, it stops progress. But if a government can get access to your data, then it can identify who you are and go lock you up and hurt you and hurt your family and cause real physical harm in ways that are just really deep. So I do think that people running these companies have an obligation to try to push back on that and fight establishing precedents which will be harmful, even if a lot of the initial countries that are talking about some of this have good intent. I think that this can easily go off the rails. And when you talk about in the future AI and data, which are two concepts that are just really tied together, I just think the values that comes from, and whether it's part of a more global system, a more democratic process, a more open process, that's one of our best hopes for having this work out well. If it comes from repressive or authoritarian countries, then I just think that's going to be highly problematic in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that raises the question of how do we build AI in such a way that it's not inherently a tool of surveillance and manipulation and control? I mean, this goes back to the idea of creating something that knows you better than you know yourself, which is kind of the ultimate surveillance and control tool. And we are building it now in different places around the world. It's being built. And what are your thoughts about how to build an AI which serves individual people and protects individual people, and not an AI which can easily, with a flip of a switch, becomes kind of the ultimate surveillance tool?
Well, I think that is more about the values and the policy framework than the technological development. I mean, it's a lot of the research that's happening in AI are just very fundamental mathematical methods where a researcher will create an advance, and now all of the neural networks will be 3% more efficient. I'm just kind of throwing this out, and that means that all right, newsfeed will be a little bit better for people. Our systems for detecting things like hate speech will be a little bit better, but our ability to find photos of you that you might want to review will be better. But all these systems get a little bit better. So now, I think the bigger question is you have places in the world where governments are choosing to use that technology and those advances for things like widespread face recognition and surveillance. And those countries, I mean, China's doing this, they create a real feedback loop, which advances the state of that technology where, they say, okay, well, we want to do this. So now there's a set of companies that are sanctioned to go do that and are getting access to a lot of data to do it because it's allowed and encouraged. So that is advancing and getting better and better. That's not a mathematical process. That's kind of a policy process that they want to go in that direction. Those are the values.
Sorry to cut Zuckerberg short. I agree with him for that there is that science is not politics. But politics can use science for its ends. Religion can use science for its ends. Any philosophical notion and ideas uses science, because science is the truth. AI is truth. You know, AI is truth. So there, I'll send a message that one as we're talking. So AI is truth. So okay, AI is truth. All of these things are truth. Now, because truth, because of that, truth is used for many things, just like the gun. The truth of the gun is that it can be used for anything. You can use a gun to shoot an apple so that you don't need to climb the tree. You can use a gun to shoot a door that has been locked. You've lost the key and you can't open the door, so you get a gun and you shoot the part of the door and you open up the door. So there are very many issues the gun can be used for. At the same time, it's used to kill. At the same time, it's used to hunt and all of that. So now what he's trying to say is that the governments of this world, many of them have different values and they can use technology for their own ends. So what does that mean? That means that even though we have United Nations, as we'll go through the video, you'll hear about that a lot. Countries are different. They have unique experiences and therefore will have unique policies. So that's the problem that we may face when we are trying to globalize the world. That's one of the challenges. Countries have unique experiences and therefore they can have even unique reasons as to why they need data. Like in Israel, their need of data, genetic data, is to know who is Jewish so that they can keep their people. They know who is Jewish so that they can understand how many they are and therefore protect them. Now, if an enemy country of Israel gets that data, they will attack those people and it will become another war altogether. So that's what you need to understand about data. It's very important. As I told you, data is everything. Everything in this world is data. That's what you need to understand. Everything is data, and some data is more serious than others. That's why Julian Assange is in limbo, and other people who have released data are not in limbo. Like when you release data that I'm gay, it's not heavy data compared to I know what the Pentagon is going to do next week. That one is serious. Where did you get that from? So some data is not heavy, but it's still data. Yes, even the one of being gay, it's still heavy data, but it's not as heavy as secrets of the Pentagon. And data like, oh look guys, I ate a burger, and then you post it on Instagram. That's data, but it's not so heavy, So people don't pay attention to that. That's why AI is going to work on picking out hate speech. Why? Because other speech is not threatening. Like when you tell people, oh, life is just so interesting. When I go through life, I just know, keep your head up high, don't give up, be patient, just keep on going. Those are the simple messages we listen to. And AI is not going to look for that and call that hate speech. But AI is going to call hate speech anything where someone says homosexuals are devils, they need to go to hell, lesbians they need to be banned, all of these things. When you write that, now AI is going to pick up that, because that is hateful data. It is data that can lead to murder. You see? So, and this is why the same Zuckerberg, he had to ban uh, this guy, what's his name again? Alex Jones, and who else is this other guy? And Louis Farrakhan, because they were very anti-Semitic. They were very, and not only Louis Farrakhan was anti-Semitic, and Alex Jones was a bit too extreme in his conspiracy theories. So they had to ban him from Facebook because there was a lot of hate speech coming from him and a lot of data that has not been confirmed. Lies are also data. Yes. Fake news is data. And that's the problem we have with science, is that everything is data. Even a lie is data. So, and fake news is so powerful because it can change your behavior. I'm laughing because when I thought of that, I remember a friend of mine told me how somebody was reading an article about gay people, and the article was very homophobic. And the person declared, yes, and now this thing is not natural. And I was like, what? Are you seeing what has happened? People go to the internet and pick guys who say what they want to hear. And what's going to happen in the years to come, the internet is going to be organized, it's going to be regulated, bloggers will be professional. Yes, you will not be a person who will be blogging unless you've gone to school and been a blogger and get a certificate to show that you are a blogger and a vlogger. Yes, very soon that's going to happen. Reason being, the system has been cluttered with diverse bloggers and vloggers, and that's why there's a lot of confusion, because people are reading whatever they want to read, and there's this thing called, this truth is truth. Especially for religion, you can't have religion is not truth. Yes, religion is not truth, because I'm going to do a video in the theological channel QSTPS about heaven. Muslims believe heaven is different. Their heaven has virgins. People are going to have sex in heaven. The Christian heaven, there is no sex. So whose heaven is the truth? You see, who is saying the truth? That's the problem. So you don't know who is saying the truth. So, but science knows the human heart is on the left side of the body. It is scientifically proven that the human heart is on the left side of the body. And if you find someone with the heart on the right hand side, then that's a very unique case, and it is explained in science. So that one, you don't even make very many blogs. I mean, how can you make 10 million blogs telling us the same thing? Guys will not bother, and you will not write. That's why there are very few science blogs, is because it's the same thing you're going to say. You're going to say the heart is on the left hand side. The next blog, the heart is on the left hand side. The next one, the heart is on the left hand side. Yes, it's good to have very many blogs saying the same thing, because it reinforces what you're saying. But at the same time, human nature is, once I've known something, I've known it. I don't need to beat around the bush about it. But for fake news and for falsehoods and for unconfirmed data, like religion is unconfirmed data, you will have very many people. There are more religions than science views about where the heart is. There is only one view where the human heart is. Only one. But there are 4,200 religions. That means 4,200 definitions of God. Over 4,200 definitions of God. Now tell me, who is saying the truth? Religion or science? It's science, because science is just one view. And the rest, the religion, nah, they don't know what they're saying. So, yes, they really don't know what they're saying. So now what happens is, as I end, I don't want to take, this is a dialectic, so we're supposed to listen to them. What happens is the internet is going to be regulated for a good reason. When it comes to science blogging, we don't need very many. Of course, in fact, the problem in the internet is not the science blogging. The problem in the internet is the lies that affect the science world. That's what we are saying. And this is the war we are having. You have, are we going to a truth system, or we are going to an opaque system like the other video I did? Are you going to the opaque system, or the translucent system, or the truth system, which is the transparent system? Like Transparency International, you know, they are people who want to know everything about the government. Even in the part 1 of this video, you'll see what Yuval Harari said, that what are we going to do? Should databases be shared? And I say yes. If we are one world, we should share databases. And when we do that, that's the end of nationalism. Because if America has my data, I'm an American. If Gambia has my data, I'm a Gambian. I don't need a visa. They have my data. If Sweden has my data, I am Swedish. If India has my data, I'm Indian. I don't need to get a visa to go to India, because India already knows me. I don't need to go to Sweden. I don't need a visa to go to Sweden, because Sweden already knows me. And I prefer that system compared to this one we have, the nationalist. In fact, that's the reason why we cannot unite. It's because we hate each other. Again, Yuval Harari says how America is not liked, is not trusted. So there's no trust with the nations. And this is what I also projected one time, that United Nations will go through renovation. Yes. Because I was thinking to myself that, you know, the American Constitution was made by the founding fathers, who are, of course, Freemasons and intellectuals and deists, mostly deists, because Freemasons are just deists. They believe in God, but in very many expressions. So these are the guys who made the Constitution. But if Freemasons and deists were perfect, then they would not have amended the Constitution. But guess what? America has amended the Constitution made by these brilliant deists. They were brilliant. Nobody can tell me those guys were dumb. They were very clever. But guess what? Even in their cleverness, they made errors. They forgot to consider other things. So what America did, it now, of course, the Constitution has that space for amendment. That's how brilliant they were. And they said, okay, in case we need to amend the Constitution, we will amend it. And so America has more than 10 amendments to its Constitution. Beautiful. Now, what does this mean? This means that any country, any organization that has constitutions, has organizational articles like the UN Charter, they are ripe for amendment. They should not say that we are perfect. That the document we wrote, we will not bring changes to it. It will remain like that. Even the EU Charter, the one that makes EU, it's not perfect. It has errors. There are some things it's leaving out, there are other things it is leaving out. So what do? You give room for amendments. And this is what the UN needs to do, because 50 years over, how many years? 1948 plus 50, the UN is over 70 years old. In fact, 71 this year. We did the video, the birthday video last year when we went through the UDHR. And we also said when we went through the UDHR, we were discussing the need to amend it. And guess what? This discussion between Harari and Zuckerberg is discussing the UDHR, freedom of speech. It's in the UDHR. But there's a problem. Now, technology came. And technology is so powerful, it's using these freedoms, and some people are even abusing. This is why, do you know why nationalism has come back? Nazism? It's because of technology. Yes. Because people now are able to make networks and revive old ideas. Anti-Semitism is not old. It's not new. It's so old. And the saddest thing about anti-Semitism, it may continue forever. Homophobia is new because the gays, we came out of the closet. So people are not happy because those who are in the closet are like, you guys are joking. Why did you come out? We wanted to keep this thing secret. It was happening, but we didn't want people to know. And that's what has happened now. When the LGBT community came out, then the homophobes awoke and now are fighting gay people because we came out. You see? So homophobia is new. Transphobia is new. All of these things are new. Because till today, because gay people are not many, very many people have never met a gay person. Yes, they have never. It's like an albino. Do you think everybody has seen an albino face to face? No. There are people who have died without seeing an albino. So the minorities, yes, even a billionaire. You know, billionaires are also minorities. How many have greeted a billionaire? People have died, never seen a billionaire in their life. What I mean by not seeing them is physical contact, greeting, and taking a picture with them. How many? Very few. So what does this mean? The problem of minorities is that they are not everywhere. So because of that, you cannot attack a minority because they are few. Do you know why Jews, it was easy to kill them, and gays in Germany? It was because they were few. They were countable. They were countable. And so they just put them. Now, so that's what you need to understand about what's happening in the world, that even though we make constitutions, we can amend them. We don't make perfect documents. And don't complain, we are amending. No, that's life. Sometimes we have documents that are not perfect. And forever, even the Bible has errors. As I told you, Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun. We are not under the sun. So that's an error. But you got his principle. You see, the science was wrong, but the principle was right. Is that things repeat themselves. You know, that's what he was trying to say. That, people having fun, people killing, people, that's human nature. That's what he meant. All right, let's go on.
And it's an economic process of the feedback loop and development of those things compared to in countries that might say, hey, that kind of surveillance isn't what we want. Those companies just don't exist as much, right? Or don't get as much support.
I don't know. In my home country of Israel is, at least for Jews, it's a democracy. And it's one of the leaders of the world in surveillance technology. And we basically have one of the biggest laboratories of surveillance technology in the world, which is the occupied territories. And exactly these kinds of systems are being developed there and exported all over the world. So Given my personal experience back home, again, I don't necessarily trust that just because a society in its own inner workings is, say, democratic, that it will not develop and spread these kinds of technologies.
Yeah, I agree. It's not clear that a democratic process alone solves it, but I do think that it is mostly a policy question, right? A government can quite easily make the decision that they don't want to support that kind of surveillance, and then the companies that they would be working with to support that kind of surveillance would be out of business, and then, or at the very least, have much less economic incentive to continue that technological progress. So that dimension of the growth of the technology gets stunted compared to others, and that's generally the process that I think you want to follow broadly, right? Technological advance isn't by itself good or bad. I think it's the job of the people who are shepherding it, building it, and making policies around it to have policies and make sure that their effort goes towards amplifying the good and mitigating the negative use cases. And that's how I think you end up bending these industries and these technologies to be things that are positive for humanity overall. And I think that's a normal process that happens with most technologies that get built. But I think what we're seeing in some of these places is not the natural mitigation of negative uses. In some cases, the economic feedback loop is pushing those things forward, but I don't think it has to be that way. But I think that that's not as much a technological decision as it is a policy decision.
I fully agree, but I mean, every technology can be used in different ways, for good or for bad. You can use the radio to broadcast music to people, and you can use the radio to broadcast Hitler giving a speech to millions of Germans. The radio doesn't care. The radio just carries whatever you put in it. So yeah, it is a policy decision, but then it just raises the question: how do we make sure that the policies are the right policies in a world when it is becoming more and more easy to manipulate and control people on a massive scale like never before? I mean, the new technology, it's not just that we invented technology and then we have good democratic countries and bad authoritarian countries, and the question is, what do they do with the technology? The technology itself could change the balance of power between democratic and totalitarian systems.
Yeah.
And I fear that the new technologies are giving an inherent advantage, not necessarily overwhelming, but they do tend to give an inherent advantage to totalitarian regimes, because the biggest problem of totalitarian regimes in the 20th century, which eventually led to their downfall, is that they couldn't process the information efficiently enough. If you think about the Soviet Union, so you have this model, an information processing model, which basically says we take all the information from the entire country, move it to one place, to Moscow, there it gets processed, decisions are made in one place, and transmitted back as commands. This was the Soviet model of information processing. And versus the American version, which was, no, we don't have a single center. We have a lot of organizations and a lot of individuals and businesses, and they can make their own decisions. In the Soviet Union, there is somebody in Moscow. If I live in some small farm or kolkhoz in Ukraine, there is somebody in Moscow who tells me how many radishes to grow this year, because they know. And in America, I decide for myself with, I get signals from the market and I decide. And the Soviet model just didn't work well because of the difficulty of processing so much information quickly with 1950s technology. And this is one of the main reasons why the Soviet Union lost the Cold War to the United States. But with the new technology, it might become, I mean, it's not certain, but one of my fears is that the new technology suddenly makes central information processing far more efficient than ever before, and far more efficient than distributed data processing. because the more data you have in one place, the better your algorithms, and so on and so forth. And this kind of tilts the balance between totalitarianism and democracy in favor of totalitarianism. And I wonder, what are your thoughts on this issue?
Well, I'm more optimistic about democracy in this. Mm-hmm. I think the way that the democratic process needs to work is people start talking about these problems, and then even if it seems like it starts slowly in terms of people caring about data issues and technology policy, because it's a lot harder to get everyone to care about it than it is just a small number of decision makers. So I think that the history of democracy versus more totalitarian systems is it always seems like the totalitarian systems are going to be more efficient and the democracies are just going to get left behind. But smart people, people start discussing these issues and caring about them, and I do think we see that people do now care much more about their own privacy, about data issues, about the technology industry. People are becoming more sophisticated about this. They realize that that having a lot of your data stored can both be an asset because it can help provide a lot of benefits and services to you, but increasingly maybe it's also a liability because there are hackers and nation states who might be able to break in and use that data against you or exploit it or reveal it. So maybe people don't want their data to be stored forever. Maybe they want it to be reduced in permanence. Maybe they want it all to be end-to-end encrypted as much as possible in their private communications. People really care about this stuff in a way that they didn't before, and that's certainly over the last several years. That's grown a lot. So I think that conversation is the normal democratic process, and I think what's going to end up happening is that by the time you get people broadly aware of the issues and on board, that is just a much more powerful approach, where then you do have people in a decentralized system who are capable of making decisions, who are smart, who I think will generally always do it better than too centralized of an approach. And here is, again, a place where I worry that personifying AI and saying AI is a thing, right, that an institution will develop and it's almost like a sentient being, I think mischaracterizes what it actually is, right? It's a set of methods that make everything better, let me retract that. That's way too broad. It's a lot of technological processes more efficient, and I think that's but that's the worry. It makes also that's not just for centralized folks, right? It's in our context, so we build our business is this ad platform. And a lot of the way that can be used now is we have 90 million small businesses that use our tools. And now, because of this access to technology, they have access to the same tools to do advertising and marketing and reach new customers and grow jobs that previously only the big companies would have had. And that's a big advance, and that's a massive decentralization. When people talk about our company and the internet platforms overall, they talk about how there's a small number of companies that are big, and that's true. But the flip side of it is that now there are billions of people around the world who have a voice, that they can share information more broadly, and that's actually a massive decentralization in power, and kind of returning power to people. Similarly, people have access to more information, have access to more commerce. That's all positive. So I don't know. I'm an optimist on this. I think we have real work cut out for us, and I think that the challenges that you raise are the right ones to be thinking about, because if we get it wrong, that's the way in which I think it will go wrong. But I don't know. I think that the historical precedent would say that at all points, where there was the competition between the U.S. and Japan in the 80s and the 70s, or the Cold War before that, are different.
All right, so we can stop there. We don't want to go so far, but let me recap that where he's discussed. And he has said, I didn't want to finish Zuckerberg because of I already, the gist of what he's trying to say, I've already got it. And secondly, Yuval is the guy I wanted us to discuss, because he brought up a very good point about the different models that were used when technology was introduced in the world. Now, the Soviet model, because they were socialists and communists, the irony of socialism and communism is that they control people into one center. So you see, that's weird. That's like a monarchy. And monarchies tend to be capitalist because in a monarchy, the king is in charge of all the people. However, he doesn't control the people. The people are controlled by the law that is either made by him or his representatives or the people's representatives. So the king is not controlling. But in socialism, it's a different type of monarchy, a different type of capitalism, because there is always a central unit that is controlling everything. And sometimes for me, I always say capitalism is like the human body. In fact, that's what capital is in Latin, capitus. The head is called cap. That's why when you write capital letters, they're big because it is a main letter to be focused on. When it's big letters, it's telling you focus on it. This is a major, very important. So the head is called capitus. That's why capital punishment was actually the death execution. They chop off the head. Now, what you need to understand is that that's capitalism. So capitalism means, and the head has a central processing unit called the brain. And every cell in the body, the problem of the human body, the human body also has problems. Yes, there are errors. One of the errors I say, why did we not have eyesight like a dog or a cat? They have very good vision. Very good vision. Tells you why people use cats, the so-called witches. Yes, it's because of their vision. And they can see. And dogs are very good at hearing. Their smell, the sense of smell of a dog is very powerful. So I always ask myself, why were we not given those senses? Because, if you're given very good eyesight, you can even see invisible things that exist. Yes, some people don't have that eyesight, and some of us do. So it depends who you are. And so people can see things. That's why the saddest trial in the world was the Salem trial, the witch trials, because these guys were seeing things even in the courtroom. But the problem of that was not everybody was seeing it, especially the judges. So the judges were supposed to say, because I can't see what you're seeing, then I don't say it. It's not true. And that's why I support judges who value hard evidence. What is hard evidence? The judge must see what you saw. That is why courtrooms exist. Courtrooms are there because the judge is supposed to have evidence. Evidence comes from the word video. Vide, to see. And that's where you get vision. Evidence is vision. It is to see. It is video. So when you go to the courtroom, the judge is playing a video of what happened. And then he says, okay, that's what happened. Yes, the lawyer comes and explains, this guy went to the house and then he did this and then he took the gun and then he shot the person. And when we did tests on the gun, the fingerprints showed that this is the person. And then you bring the evidence. That is a video. So when you go to courtroom, you go and watch movies. That's how it is. It's just movies. Your life is a movie. Cases are movies. books you read are movies. Everything you're going through is a movie, meaning it can be recorded and it can be written down and it can be acted, and it therefore becomes a movie. So that's what you need to understand about the whole thing about eyesight. So I was saying the body is wired that way and has some problems. So everything, whatever happens to me, like now when I touch myself, the brain is already aware that I'm doing that, because these areas of the body, they have a nervous system, they have nerves. And what makes me know I have pain is those nerves. Do you know, you can because you are asleep, you may not feel pain when someone hits you or steals something from you, because the central units are asleep. So that's the problem of having a central system. But because if you have a body that's very sensitive, even when you're sleeping and someone touches you, you'll wake up. You will immediately know somebody's there. But because you can't do that, you have one central processing unit. So when you're asleep, most of the senses are switched off. And so you can't sense anything. So the Soviets used that system. America is a capitalist. And even when the Soviet states existed, it was very anti-communist and very anti-socialism. So what Yuval is saying, in America, you are allowed to have your data centers, TV station, YouTube station, your blog, your websites. You're allowed. You're not stopped. And the only way the government will come in is when you take one of those people to court and sue them for things they've said. Like, Alex Jones now is spending so much time in court because he has said so many things. And he has said so many things that have hurt people and are not true. So people have evidence to show that it's not true. So Alex Jones, he has made a lot of money from conspiracy theories, and so that's what has happened. So that's the American system, and I support that system. I prefer it to the Soviet system of one central unit, whereby you get the answer from one person. I prefer the American system whereby you're free and you are your own government. The beauty of a capitalist systems, and therefore democracy, is you are, what do you call it? You are free to be your own government in a government. Yes, because that's the truth. How I put on today, nobody told me. There's no Soviet who told me go and wear black. I said I'm going to wear this, and that's what it's time to tell you. But in a Soviet system or where a centrally controlled government, they will tell you what to wear. All of you are going to wear white clothes. All of you are nobody's going to put on a wristwatch. Nobody's going to sleep at 1 a.m. Everybody's going to sleep at 10 a.m. 10 p.m. Everyone is going to eat. You see, that's a totalitarian system. And this is what Yuval is saying. And he's asking Zuckerberg, what are you supporting? Do you support totalitarianism or democratic totalitarianism? I support democratic totalitarianism. Reason, technology has already won the war of conquering humans. And it's done. Even in the law courts, as I've told you, evidence is from the word video is from the word evidence, which comes from Latin videre, to see. So when people set up CCTV cameras, that was the end of criminal defense attorneys. Yes, those lawyers who defend you. Because in the past, when you steal and there is no camera, you could afford a defense lawyer, because you'll just tell him, I'm not the one who stole. and you're very aware there is no witness who saw you, there is no person who peeped and said, oh, I saw this guy do it. Nobody. So when you get the lawyer, the defense lawyer comes and says, okay, they say you're the one who stole. Did you steal? I didn't steal. I wasn't even there. You know? And then so the defense lawyer says, okay, and I know what stealing is. Stealing is you have to prove that the person who stole was there and in his possession is a stolen item. Now, failure to have those ingredients means the person did not steal. So as a defense lawyer, when you don't get those things, then you say, okay, then they have lied. You didn't steal, so I'm going to defend you. Of course, I'm paraphrasing. I don't want to go into the legal nitty-gritty, because if you do go to the nitty-gritty, then you will attack lawyers, that lawyers are the ones who defend criminals, and that's a lie. The law is very clear. Guilt is proven. It's not assumed. Guilt is proven. It is not assumed. And so people should, even though you go to a lawyer and you say you didn't do it, it's not the job of the lawyer to say you did it, but we are going to cover up. No, there's nothing like that. If the person tells you he didn't do it, he didn't do it. And that's how you do it. He didn't do it. And you go, and as a defense lawyer, you beat the prosecution by saying they don't have the evidence to prove that he did it, because what you need from the prosecutor is evidence. Defense lawyer, the burden of proof is not on the defense lawyer, it's on the prosecutor. It's the one who is the person who is having a complaint. That is the person who must produce substantial evidence to implicate the person of a crime. But now, because of CCTV videos, cameras, they are recording human life. So when people go and steal in a shop perfumes and there's a camera and there was nobody in the shop at that time, so you blame the attendant, and the person steals, then you go to the courtroom, and then when you go to the courtroom, you produce these CCTV videos, and the person who has been accused of stealing is the one who is on the video, and they play the video. That's the end. The case is done. The person, all you need to do now is prove that that person is the one who stole. You can see him clearly. And besides, even these days, the problem we have, and this is what Zuckerberg is also saying, that technology is getting better, that according to him, AI should not be personified. Rather, it should be seen as methods, different technological methods to solve human problems. And so for him, AI is going to improve camera, it's going to improve recording of data, it's going to improve surveillance. So now when you have a very good CCTV camera, and they're coming, very clear cameras, in fact some are even 360 degrees, they can even survey a spatial space, 360 degrees, going round and round, very fast, taking cameras, taking pictures. So when that happens, that kills the job of the defense lawyer, because he's done. He's just there to mitigate the punishment of the accused, but the cameras have already said this person is the one who committed. However, it does not destroy the presumption of innocence. You are still presumed innocent until proven guilty. So that camera recording, that recording must confirm that the person on the video is the person in the courtroom for the judge to now pronounce a judgment. So that's how technology is changing everything. Now the problem of technology is it's double-edged. Everything we use in the world is double-edged. Everything. And this is what I tell Christians also and Jews, because they believe, do you know in the Quran there's no tree of good, of knowledge and evil? Yes, we're going to confirm this in the next video. There is no tree. They could not call the tree of knowledge of good and evil. But why I like that tree is that it has said there's good knowledge and bad knowledge. However, at the same time, I don't like the tree because what is good to one person is bad to another person. That's what you need to understand. That's why I laugh at people who use the word, oh, this is a good person, we're gonna build a good system. I laugh and say, no, there's nothing like that, because what is good to me is bad to you. What is bad to you is good to me. So what is good? You see, what is good? Tell me. This is philosophy. And what is bad? You don't know. So that's what you need to understand. So anyway, I'm happy with what Yuval is saying, and I prefer democratic totalitarianism, of which, if you listen to Zuckerberg at the end, that's what he's supporting. He's supporting democratic totalitarianism, and that's where we're going. Totalitarianism that is watched by the people. You know, the importance of democracy is to avoid dictatorships. Because a dictatorship is where democratic voices are stifled. And one way is the way. And if you don't follow the way, you're a bad person. You are arrested. You see, that's the problem of monarchies. Monarchies are dictatorships. Yes. Because if you don't do this, then you're not with us. That's what Jesus said. Jesus was a king. He was a dictator. Always know that. Jesus was a dictator. Muhammad was a dictator. Buddha was an advisor. He wasn't a dictator. The Buddhists have no moral code. They just advise you. If you want to avoid suffering, don't do what you like. It's a suggestion. It's not an order. So when you read Buddhists, they are very free people. They don't have a moral code. But Muslims, Christians, and Jews, they have moral codes. And that's a sign of monarchy, and that's the sign of dictatorship. It's not a democracy. Democracy, you're allowed to do whatever you want. Yes. If you want to vent, abuse the president, do it. And if the president is not happy, he can sue you. If he feels what you've said is detrimental to his reputation, he can sue you. Same to everybody. Yes. You see, everybody is under the umbrella of democracy. So that's what you need to understand. Okay. That's part 2. Let's go to part 3, and then we'll be done with the dialectic between Mark Zuckerberg and Yuval Noah Harari.